Thank you for tuning in to Petros Family Wealth YouTube channel. Today we're not going to talk about anything investment related or wealth management related. We're only going to talk about practical application of AI for small businesses. AI has been a big hot topic over the last few years, and we serve a number of businesses, everything from 1099 contractors to breweries to medical device companies. And over the years, we've just been collecting different use cases where some of these small businesses are applying and increasing their productivity or generating new ideas so that they can thrive and provide for their families as well as the families of their employees. So we're going to start talking about small items first, and then we're going to slowly ramp them up. The three main case studies we're going to use is one for deep research, two for marketing, and the third is for training, particularly for new employees or for delegating certain tasks that are repetitive and you're starting to put a little bit more on your staff so you can start focusing on other key areas of the business. But before we dive into there, I do want to touch on the security element of it. So the two things to remember when utilizing AI from a cybersecurity standpoint. The first one is a lot of the free tools, whenever you're typing in a question or a prompt and you're uploading data, they're typically, whatever that question or that data is used to train and help the AI model get a little bit better. That could be a problem when you start talking about your own personal information, your business information, and particularly your customers' information. So the second thing is, one of the items you look for in the paid version is if they use that customer data to train their AI models. In the paid versions, generally that's not the case. And then the second thing that you look for is whether they're SOC Type 2. And what that is it's a legal and cybersecurity standard that protects client identifying information. But even though that might be protected and a good thing to incorporate, the best thing to do is just to try to eliminate any client identifying information at all. Personal business information, just take out the name, some of the identifying information like addresses, or if you're in a very unique niche business, just maybe some of the numbers or just some of the data so it's not applicable only to you. And then if you're using customer information like sales data, and you have John Doe as one of your customers, just put on a separate Excel sheet, John Doe equals customer number 1. And then on the Excel sheet that you input into the AI tool, you can just have customer number 1. And then once you're done with the data, you pull it back into your firewall, and you can sync up that customer number 1 is John Doe. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and dive into a number of practical use cases, and all these are going to be real world examples and demonstrations and none of the hype. So hope you enjoy and like and subscribe if you do. We're going to kick off our deep dive using some basic research ideas. For this, I'm going to use Grok, and what we're going to start off with is just a kind of a broad-based question that you might have as far as a small business. As you grow, you might start to identify that maybe there's different technology tools out there available to you, and so I just typed in, tell me 3 different types of contact management systems for small businesses less than 50 people. And it can come up with a couple different ideas for you. And then it also includes some of the links or some of the sources of that data. But once you have that broad-based information, then you can also go a step further. And so these tools might be great, but what if I'm a manufacturing business and I need to know if any of these contact management tools integrate with some of my inventory or quotes or invoice systems or technology stack that we have. This can give you an idea of some of those contact management systems, which ones tend to work out best, some of the pros and cons, and how they work together in case you needed something that an all-in-one, or if you like one tool, sometimes there's a lot of overlap, and so you want to see if can they replace each other or can they integrate. That's usually the first step as far as getting a broad-based idea of some of the struggles that you might be facing in a small business. But when you have some technical question, one of the tricks to make sure that we have a deep dive in a specific area is to give the AI tool the specific resource, specific website, specific code or manual. And so as an example here, if you're a solo entrepreneur, 1099 contractor, and you're trying to find out if how much you can deduct on a solo 401k. If you give the specific IRS website, that'll narrow down the tool, the AI tool, to just that fact, just that resource. So that way it's not getting some of its information from TikTok, as an example. And you can dive as deep as you want into that specific area. And so this gives an idea of the specific deductions that might be available. And then you might say, okay, well, what specific line item on the tax return will I plug that information in? And it'll give you the specific line item of whatever tax form that you're trying to reference here. And so as far as just a broad-based research, that's a good starting point. And then you can add some of the classifications of integrating with different other technology resources that you might have available. And then if you're looking for something very specific, if you give the AI, whether it's Grok, ChatGPT, or Gemini, whatever it might be, if you give the specific code or website you want it to look, basically saying, hey, read this and tell me the summary or tell me the answer, is a great way to focus the intelligence of AI to a specific area. One of the other things that AI can be helpful is trying to summarize data in a way that you can digest it better. And so I'm going to use ChatGPT for this one, and this is to help visualize a QuickBooks cash flow report. Now don't worry, it's a made up cash flow report, fudged all the numbers and everything. You can say, hey, create a graph showing the profit and loss by quarter, and it can create a table or recreate that table for you. But I literally downloaded this from QuickBooks, updated a bunch of numbers, messed them all up, changed all the personal information and everything, and asking it to help me visualize what the net results are going to be. As you can see here, once it's done thinking, I can show that profit and loss and show those specific expenses in that detailed Excel sheet that might be, however many tabs and however many rows it might be, and then point out some of the key specifics that you wanted to hear about or you wanted to see, to make sure that one, you got the books right, or two, maybe there's a business reason for a large expense for that particular quarter or that month, or a big piece of revenue from a big contract or something. So that's one way, is to help visualize some of that high level data. Another tool that's out there that some clients are using is what's called Notebook LM. We're going to use this for a couple of things, but this one, as far as analyzing data, we went over the visual side of things. This one helps in the audio side of things. So this is particularly helpful for folks that are out on the road a lot. You get your books from your accountant for that month, you plug it into here, and this actually creates a podcast, 10-15 minutes, talking through your books and pointing out some of the major differences or discrepancies. So let's just have a listen here.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a really close look at a business's finances over the last couple of years.
Yeah, we've got these monthly cash flow statements, February 23 right up to April 25. It's quite a data set.
Exactly. And our mission really is to unpack what's going on behind those numbers for you.
To see the trends, the income costs, understand the journey of their profitability. We want to connect the dots.
Right. Pull out the key insight.
In November. The big positive in December could be the actual annual premium payment maybe, or an adjustment related to that refund. Same idea for April 25, probably a large payment or reconciliation. These aren't smooth monthly costs.
Licensure dues and...
So the podcast will actually go line by line and point out some of the discrepancies and some of the relations to help you identify, hey, you know what? That was a big month. Why was that? That's right. We had that big contract go through, but it was a one-time deal, and so it was a large fluctuation. But then it'll actually point out some of the specific numbers of your business, saying, hey, we had this $4,000 marketing expense that didn't occur in the 2 previous years. And you can ask, well, what the heck was that? And then go back into that specific month to identify why that was unique, or was that an annual payment versus a monthly payment, for example. So that's another way to help you learn more a little bit about your business, about what's going on. And you just plug in the cash flows again, create the podcast, and then you're off and running. One of the areas that AI is most useful for is on the marketing side of things. And that's primarily because a lot of the AI tools are trained by the social media or LinkedIn posts or blogs. And so they basically figured out the secret sauce in there, and you can just tell it what you're trying to do and it'll help build basically like an 80% solution on a lot of your content. And so we're gonna start off with some basics and then go pretty deep and pretty heavy in some of the specific marketing ideas that are out there. So let's just start off with kind of a basic email invite to a webinar or event talking about your IT consultant business and how you help small businesses. So I just asked for 1 to 2 paragraphs about an educational webinar coming up, but then you can ask to shorten this up. If that looks a little bit too lengthy, nobody's going to read it, I can whittle it down to 1 paragraph for you. But when you get this, like any content, it's going to get you about 80% of the way there, but then you're going to have to add your voice and your personality into the email. But with just some, 1 or 2 sentences, get you 80% of the way there. And for folks that are not creative like myself, that's a great starting point, and then you can fine tune off of that. The other marketing piece that AI is good for is being specific to the platform that you're using. So same thing on a educational webinar, but I want to focus on LinkedIn posts. And so in this case, it talks both about the webinar, but then specifically it can show all the different check marks and little emojis or whatever they are, and cater it to that platform that you're using in order to hopefully amplify some of the engagement. So make sure you're saying, here's what I want to do and here's where I'm posting, and then it'll customize it to that medium or that social media platform that you're using. The other thing that could be good for is just professional letter writing. And so we have one example here of a letter, and I'm going to use Gemini for this. Gemini or ChatGPT, good for some of that more longer form format. And plugged in a specific letter, and we're going to ask, make this shorter and more concise. And some of the tools that you might be using, this one in particular, Gemini, when you make it shorter, it can provide that nice bullet point format. Or if you want to make that letter more professional, you can do that same thing right here. You can see in this example, it makes the letter more professional, and it can actually talk through some of the key changes that it made in the letter, so you can find out where the changes were and make sure it's to your liking. The last piece on this marketing side, and this one's relatively new, this is part of that Google Ultra AI platform. So Google Ultra AI platform, they got a bunch of stuff, Gemini, Notebook M, and then this Flow. This one gets pretty interesting, pretty weird real quick, where you can start to build your own videos based on some key information. And so in this example, I said, hey, make an intro to a YouTube video, and it plugged in my picture and our logo and put this thing together. Now, similar to some of the other tools that we had, it's not going to be a 100% solution right away. So as an example, let me point out this. I am either the smallest person you've ever seen, or that is the biggest lamp in the world right there that I've ever been incorporated in, the biggest sheets of paper as well. So it's not going to be perfect, and keep trying, keep tweaking things. A lot of times if you have some errors, for example, when I looked at this, a couple of errors, some of the things that threw off the tool were the quotation marks as an example. But you can use this for like an intro, and then you can also use it for like an intro if you're trying to get some video going for some educational event. And so here's an example of a intro to a webinar that you could throw up on LinkedIn, so that when people scroll, it's actually an actual person talking here.
Frustrated about running a business and building wealth? Join our webinar about comprehensive wealth management and what it can do for you.
And you can make some tweaks. There's lots of editing, so this one's pretty deep in there as far as the possibilities, but at least gives you a glimpse of what's possible. And you can make intros or little snippets of video here using AI and a couple of prompts. So like, for example, this is the prompt that I used, and then these are the videos that popped out from those, whatever, 3, 4, 5 sentences there. Now the next thing that we're going to look at is regarding training for employees, either new employees or for current employees that you're trying to delegate more tasks to. So one of the things that you could do, even if you're not going to be incorporating AI today, is you can actually start recording yourself doing some of those redundant tasks, so that even if in a year or so, it might be a year out for hiring somebody that be able to help administer or run your business with you. If you start recording yourself, this one is using loom.com. You could record yourself doing some of those redundant tasks. And what that'll do is that'll create the data set where we can train AI to help put together a training program. And so this is an example of a stock swap. So it happens a lot where we're trying to sell one investment and move to another one. And just reporting what that is, I can go back to Notebook LM. These are the guys that built that podcast here on our QuickBooks. And I plugged in just one video. But again, AI is better the more you train it or the more you teach it. And so the more resources you provide it, the better it gets. And so what I asked here was create a step-by-step standard operating procedure, SOP, to swap one stock for another in client's portfolio. And it goes through and creates that step-by-step, and I can copy and paste that into a Word document, fine-tune it a little bit, and then bam, that's now an SOP. And I can give that SOP to a new hire or an employee that I want to have that task taken on from. They have an SOP to go off of, but then they also have a number of videos that they can use to understand, any of those kind of maybe those unique situations that may come up. And they've seen you do that and how you manage that, and they can carry on that task hopefully a lot faster than them just watching you each time. And so that's particularly helpful if a hire is a year out or so, or that delegation's a year out. You're already basically building that manual so that when you're ready financially to be able to bring that person on, they can start getting trained on it. Another piece that's helpful as far as just training, particularly for some of those first hires, if you're a small business and you're literally hiring your first person, you can ask it to build a training program for a new hire. And you can be specific or as specific as you want or not specific. I'd say build this out for an administrative assistant. And it'll fine tune, what that training looks like depending on your industry or what you're doing. And you can say like, okay, well, this is a good starting point. Week 1, week 2, maybe we start to get into some of the tours, guided tutorials. And breaks out different tasks or activities that person should be able to start doing by a certain timeline in order to make sure that they're meeting your expectations. And particularly those first couple weeks for a brand new hire are very important. It kind of sets the stage. Having something ready to go those first couple moments will be very helpful as far as ramping that person up. Now this last one that we're going to cover, this one's pretty in the weeds, similar to what we did with the video that Google's Flow. This one is going to be very helpful for sales folks or customer service folks or folks that are dealing with vendors. And in particular, if that employee or that staff member is going to be in charge of and responsible for some very tough conversations. So this one's called 11 Labs, and you can create an agent to mimic the type of situations or phone calls that the staff member is going to be in. So for example, I built a agent that's a vendor that just sent me an invoice for some of the products that I purchased with a 30% price increase because of tariffs. And so, we can have that background. You can make it as tough or as easy as you would like, depending on the experience level of your employee or the staff member. And the goal of this is to have some role playing without you there. And this role playing is meant to train and create the environment that staff member is going to be in, and have the training and the experience and the knowledge of how to deal with those tough conversations before an actual real world tough conversation pops up. And then again, you can have the staff member record some of their conversations and you grade them. But let's just play around with this and test it out.
Hi, Carl. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm all right, Carl. I'm calling you today regarding the new quote I sent over. As you know, tariffs have increased our costs significantly, hence the 30% price increase. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's going to be a tough pill to swallow. I'm not sure if we can pass that on to our customers here. What have you seen other people, how do you see them managing this price increase?
Most of our clients understand the situation with the tariffs, but everyone's feeling the pinch. Some are absorbing part of the cost, others are passing it on, and some are looking for alternative materials. To be frank, we're not making much profit as it is, so we can't absorb much of the increase ourselves. What options are you considering on your end?
Yeah, so we're with that price increase. The two options that I was speaking with my manager about are, one is, maybe we just wait to buy more here because hopefully these tariffs at least get lowered. Or the other possibility is we start ramping up the purchases in case they start popping up. So do you think we can get any price discounts if we do a larger order at all?
I understand the position you're in, Carl. I can look into a potential discount for a significantly larger order, but I can't make any promises. To give you a better idea, what kind of volume increase are we talking about? Are you able to give me a rough estimate?
Yeah, so instead...
Could you provide a rough... Sorry, there for a second. Could you repeat that?
Oh, no worries. So if we ordered we were looking at 1,000, if we did 1,500 units, how much do you think you can get as far as a price reduction there?
Okay, I see. Let me check on something. Okay, Carl, so I had a chance to check with my team. A 50% increase in volume is definitely something we can work with. However, I need a little more convincing to go lower on the...
So that's a pretty deep example, and again, trying to recreate a tough situation so that by the time that staff member or the employee is in that tough spot, they already have some of the experience and some of the knowledge and some of the questions ready to go, or rebuttals ready to go, so that when it actually is a real world environment, they're much better off, much better positioned to serve your business well and help your family. Well, that was by far my longest YouTube video that I've ever done. So hope you enjoyed. And if you did have some takeaways or some questions, feel free to add some comments and we can figure out this AI revolution together and see how it can improve our businesses and your business. Yeah, feel free to shoot us a note. And otherwise, go ahead, like, subscribe, and hit that notification button.